Welcome back to Interviews with the Pros, the podcast where we sit down with the people shaping corporate events from every angle. Not just the planners, but the experts in the industry we've had the pleasure to work with at KCI. We'll speak with strategists, marketing executives, global events leaders, entrepreneurs, technologists, and all kinds of specialists in the different areas that make the industry move. I'm your host of this series, Kimberly Clark, CEO and founder of KCI Management and Maestra. With 3 decades in corporate events and thousands of programs behind me, I've learned that excellence doesn't live in one role, it lives across the ecosystem. And today we're shaking things up. I've turned the mic over to Jessica White, Director of Events at KCI and key content contributor for Maestra. She will be joined by Sean Whalin, CEO and co-founder at HopSkip, a B2B SaaS venue sourcing platform headquartered in Philadelphia. In this episode, Jessica, who also sits on the HopSkip advisory board, will be talking with Sean about how the collaborative nature of our industry helps propel us all forward, and they'll be exploring best practices for streamlining and modernizing venue sourcing while keeping that high-touch approach. This conversation offers a look into the journey that led Sean to develop and launch a highly successful sourcing solution, and insights you may not otherwise get exposure to if you stay in your own lane. Let's get into it.
Hi, Sean. Welcome.
Hi, Jess. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. I'd like to start by introducing you to the audience with a bit of a fun question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
It is a fun question. What I wanted to be when I was growing up was a professional baseball player. I was obsessed with the Philadelphia Phillies, and I always wanted to be in the MLB. Unfortunately, that didn't transpire for me, and now I'm running a B2B software company instead.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to be either an interior designer or Laura Croft. So that also didn't pan out that way. Do you want to tell the audience how we know each other? Do you remember the first time we met?
Of course. The first time we met, I want to say, was it CME 2020 through 4 or 3? I don't
that, yeah.
You've been a HopSkip partner customer of ours for 3 years at least or so. CME is a great show for us, but CME, it was our first time ever exhibiting at a trade show in Canada, and was just blown away by the show in general, but specifically you, and we were so happy and appreciative to be able to partner.
Amazing. I remember too. I feel like I did I kept doing the walk back and forth, like what did they do? Maybe what did they do? And kept coming back and forth, and finally sitting down, and it was great because there's such a need in the market for venue sourcing that people overlook the amount of work and time that goes into finding the right venue. People just think, oh, I'll just go to this, Marriott down the road, but there's so much more that goes into it. And so that leads us into kind of our next point of conversation in terms of, telling the listeners who may be new to HopSkip, why don't you talk a little bit about, the program itself or the platform itself, and the core problem that you're solving for people like me?
Yeah, sure. So for those that might not be super familiar with the traditional sourcing process in today's events industry, planners typically, or traditionally I should say, have done this process very manually, where they're reaching out to anywhere between a handful to upwards of 20, 30 hotels to request a quote or formal proposal, to then be able to present those options. Well, first they have to review each proposal, and then compare each proposal, and then present each proposal to their stakeholders. Traditionally, that's been very manual. HopSkip streamlines that entire process with a couple clicks of a button. Planners are able to hop on our platform, search and discover over 150,000 global groups and meetings hotels. They're able to review proposals effortlessly and contract confidently with hotels. So planners use our platform to book hotels for business events.
Awesome. And you were new to the industry when you first started the platform.
Very new.
I would love to understand kind of what drove you to both sourcing the event industry. How did you find the gap and need for it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Completely accidental. You're 100% right. Complete outsider. Really didn't even know that this was an industry before I kind of stumbled on the problem that HopSkip solves today. It was back, close to almost 15 or so years ago. I was fresh out of school. I was a management consultant and I was living in hotels. I was living in hotels because I was traveling to different clients all over the country and then ultimately the globe. And it's about, I don't know, let's call it 4 weeks in to my first ever engagement or project. And I'm sitting in a hotel lobby and my engagement director, my boss essentially, comes over to me and volunteers me, or I was voluntold, to go out and get quotes for the firm's annual conference from a handful of different hotels. So the firm had this annual conference every year. It rotated at a different hotel property. And our in-house meeting and event planner was out on maternity leave. And I was the junior green pea guy on the totem pole and got voluntold to do this. I initially thought it was going to be something I was going to be able to sit down on my computer and bang out in, let's call it 20 minutes. Little did I know how antiquated, complex, and tedious the process actually is to go find some hotels that are a good fit, to go get quotes or proposals from those properties, to be able to review and compare them apples to apples, and then ultimately present those options to my stakeholders. I thought, like I said, it was going to be a 30-minute thing. It turned out to be a 12-week, very, very painful process, and I became obsessed with the problem ever since. And I had the benefit of living in hotels during that time, so I would, as I would learn more and more, I'd continue to dig deeper into the process, and I would have conversations with many different hotel sales teams, all at different hotels throughout the years, just learning more and getting more and more validation of how antiquated the process was. Fast forward a couple of years, I leave consulting to come back to Philadelphia. I got recruited to work at a company here that opened up my mind to the technology world, and I still couldn't shake the itch to keep digging deeper into sourcing. So I continued to learn in the background and continue to get validation from meeting planners this time of how antiquated this process was, knew there had to be a better way, always knew, I've always been a builder, always knew that I'd start my own company one day, never in a million years thought I'd be in this industry. I'm so glad it is. And I really, truly just fell in love with the problem we solve and who we solve it for.
That's awesome. My next question was going to be, what's the biggest misconception? But I think you really, really answered that as part of that process. And I would say, if only you had Maestra during that time to help you. That's exactly what Maestra is for.
Because I literally, that's such a good point. I literally thought to myself as I was going through it for the first time, there's gotta be a better way. And I was looking for answers, trying to figure out what the better way was. And I also was studying the competitive landscape and didn't find any solutions like HopSkip exists today. So yeah, a platform like yours would be immensely helpful during times like that.
That's great. Thank you. And then, as you can imagine, this landscape is changing constantly. We're learning new technologies coming out. AI is playing a role. Economic factors are coming in that really impact how we service the industry and how we react. How do you find, how do you stay current, and what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's a great question. A couple different ways. I mean, it's super important, of course, to stay current because kind of piggybacking off our last question, I I give all credit to like our success as a company and growth as a company to our end users because we learn from them just like we learn what's going on in the industry from the industry. So it's getting out and about and listening, being interested, and talking to your peers of like the pain points that they're feeling today, the things that they're seeing, what they're experiencing. And that's the best way because you got to be careful sometimes too with getting biased, like online media. So I always find it this most beneficial to get out at industry trade shows like an IMEX or an MPI or PCMA and talk to your peers. That's the best way I've found. In terms of like specific trends right now, I would say planners are demanding transparency. There has been a big push for better visibility on costs. There's of course been, financial pressures on cost as well and budget. So I know that that's an ongoing trend. I also see sustainability being something that's continuing to rise, which is exciting to see as well.
Do you find it challenging? Because I know when we sit on our advisory board calls, you've got planners from that represent different industries, different size businesses. Do you find the information that you get is it consistent across multiple areas, or do you find depending on the industry like that the planner supports that it can be conflicting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's very dependent on so we kind of segment our planner customers and partners into like three buckets to overgeneralize. The first would be third party that planners that could look like an event agency or a meeting planning company or an independent planner, but all sourcing on behalf of other clients. Within that bucket, those clients could fall into different industries and they could have different, let's say, external factors impacting them, which is ultimately going to impact the planner and their preferences. So it can get it could almost become like a web if you kind of peel back the onion a little bit, where our third-party planners generally care about the same things, but at the same time, they're not all the same. So they might have, for example, like our third-party planners that are booking really high-end incentive trips might care about something completely different than our planners that are still third parties that are booking more like insurance agent kind of trainings, right? Mm-hmm. Those are two completely different sets of requirements, but those are the same type of planner compared to, for example, like our nonprofit or professional membership association planners care a lot about making sure that they have all of their data centralized to be able to report to their board of directors because that's a bylaw of their association. So it's really planner dependent, and even within the type of planner that uses HopSkip, there's none of which are the same, I would say. All very, very unique.
Yeah, I know I always learn something on those calls from my peers, which I think makes this industry like one of the more exciting things about our industry is like we are constantly learning, we are constantly evolving, we are constantly finding a different, sometimes better way of doing something. So it's I think that's why, we do what we do and why we as planners, it takes a certain person to be able to do this job as well.
That I totally agree with. There's a similarity between all planners is like you guys just get it done. You get the job done. And
I think there's a passion, right? We thrive off the high that we get from a successful program. We complain about the stress leading up to it, but then I don't think that there's a better feeling than the last attendee leaving with a smile on their face and just, everything concluding and having a happy client. So it's
that's the number one. That's the number one similarity we hear every day across all planners. The thing that makes it all worth it, at least what we're told, is seeing it all come together at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. What is one skill or trait that you believe is non-negotiable working in this industry?
That's a great question. I would say curiosity, intellectual curiosity, like the genuine kind, not just like I read the industry newsletters. I mean, like where you actually want to understand why things work the way they do, and you're bothered when they don't. So like the events industry is, in my mind, is deeply relational and complex, and there's a lot of moving pieces to this game. So making sure, so let me back up. There's a lot of moving pieces to this game. There's going to be a lot of challenges and hurdles thrown at you, and making sure that you have that like intellectual curiosity to keep going. To me, that's a non-negotiable. Like, in order to be successful in this industry, you have to have a passion for it, because if you don't, you're just going to get washed out. And I think the trader skill that is built in our DNA at HopSkip is just always, this is one of our like company's core values too, always be learning. And what that means is like your end users, your peers in the industry are your source of knowledge and intelligence. Without your source of knowledge and intelligence, or without knowledge and intelligence, how are you going to grow? And if you're not growing, how's your company going to grow?
And I would say, I think that as an outsider, that makes HopSkip so unique. And when I talk to my peers about your platform, I think one of the biggest differentiators I see is your willingness to learn and explore. I mean, I know we've collaborated on several things within the platform, and being able to have that say on the planner side, and have a voice, just to listen and explore, like, hey, that is something that we could look into doing. I think really sets you guys apart from other platforms that do this.
I appreciate that. I mean, I thank you for the kind words. I also look at it like planners. I've always said this. Planners to me were like 7 different hats. You're like a master project manager / Excel jockey, financial analyst. You have to be an expert communicator, and there's a lot of, and 20 other skills I'm sure I didn't name, but there's a lot of complexities and skills that go into your job. And our philosophy at HopSkip is you're the quarterback of this process, and we think a lot of the players that came before us kind of tried to shoehorn the planner into the process and built the product around the venue. We took a different approach, and we look at it like you're the quarterback, you're the one running the show, and built the product around the planner with, of course, keeping in mind, the hotels or the supply side for us, but it really revolves around you because all the work is on your plate and you're running the show. So we built the product to make that happen.
Awesome. What is the best advice that you have received in your career that has attributed to your success?
That's a great question too. I would say first thing that comes to mind is do fewer things better. It sounds simple, but it's like everything I thought entrepreneurship was supposed to look like. Like I thought you had to be everywhere, you had to do 1,000 things, you had to be busy. It's really doing core set of things consistently and doing them well. Like, again, not going back to HopSkip, but I will. One of our core philosophies is if you're trying to be the best at everything, you're not going to be the best at any one thing. We're laser focused on being the best product in the world for sourcing hotels for business events. And that compounds over time, right? So that, to me, would probably be the number one piece of advice that I've received that I think has led to where our company has grown today.
Awesome. And I completely agree with that. And I think that's something that, we've as a team have started focusing on with the rest of our team that is growing, and myself and any people that are young people that I meet, that I mentor. It's the same thing. You can't stop trying to be great at everything, because then you're going to fail. Pick the things that you love and that you're good at, and perfect and excel at those skills, because I think that's where you're going to find the most success. Because you can try, it's like juggling. You try too many balls, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And if you have the passion, I mean, that's like where the intellectual curiosity is going to come naturally. So 100%. It's a win-win.
I completely agree.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation with Jessica and Sean. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your partnership and your perspectives. And we loved hearing about your experience and the work you're doing at HopSkip for the benefit of both the planners and the hotel sales teams. Your insights into the importance of collaboration, strategic partnerships, and staying curious but also on course are incredibly valuable for anyone working in or around corporate events. If you'd like to see more of what Sean and his team at HopSkip are up to, you can find them at myhopskip.com, where they share how HopSkip keeps things focused, measurable, and easy, while empowering planners to feel confident and creative, and yet gives the hotels the insights they need to win more of the right business. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Interviews with the Pros.